Ayada said that he had no other choice. Hearing what Ayada said, Eugene immediately hit his head against his head so hard. Eugene asked, "He gone mad? Doesn't he know what happens when Ayada learns black magic by contracting a demon? They would completely control Ayada's soul. If they ask Iode to kill himself, and he would have to do as they were told, and the matter didn't end there in the first place. If he became a dark mage, you'd be shaming the entire family. Not only that, but what if the demon he contracted told Ayada to kill his parents and siblings, then ordered them to bring Lionheart treasure to them? Ayada have to obey their orders because it could risk his life." After that, with a sharp and condescending look, Eugene said, "Could you do that? You just someone who can't take care of himself and prefers to get drunk and dreams." Ayada, who was then teary-eyed, said, "What you really knew about him?" Eugene just smiled and said, "If he had a story, just tell it." Ayada said that Eugene would never understand because he was at the center of everyone's attention for these 4 years. He was raised as a child of the main family and he received many benefits from the direct head of the family. Hearing that, Eugene immediately spoke up, "If other people hear Ayada's story, they might think that he was being discriminated against." Eugene said, "You have the same support as me. You also has the White Flame method and you gets the opportunity to become the Red Tower Master's apprentice, if he works as much as possible so that the talents he has can reach their high potential." Even Cyan and Seal were training at home, while Ayada was playing around with Arot. Then, Eugene asked, "What do you really think that he could become the next head of the family?" With tears in his eyes, Ayada replied that he did not want to be the next head of the Lionheart family. He would become a dark mage and then go to Helmet. There in the free land, he would be able to prove himself. But before he could finish all his words, Eugene hit Ayada's face with all his might. Ayada have bounced on the wall, him fell, and with a face of pain, he screamed loudly. Eugene tries to convince Ayada words that he wants to go to Helmet and get the praise of the demons, even though he is a direct descendant of the great Vermouth. You want to prove himself to the demons more than his own family? Did he think the demons would admire him? Then Eugene was sure that Ayada would understand that other than the fact that Ayada was the eldest heir of the Lionheart family, Ayada was completely worthless. Eugene couldn't understand why someone who is gifted with many things that others coveted could crumble so much. Eugene then felt that it was pointless to talk to Iode anymore. Then after that, Eugene contacted Sir Ro to come to their current location. The soldiers came to the place and brought the to be punished. While Sir Ro looked confused, that Ayada made a frightened face and finally said that he didn't really want to do it and didn't want to become a black magician. However, Sir Ro said that Ayada had tried it and had sold the Lionheart family name. Ayada had insulted Sir Gilliard, who entrusted Ayada to Sir Ro. Ayada has also spat on all the wizards of Red Tower, who taught him, and he is also insulted, who has tried his best to take care of him. Ayada insisted that he had not meant to do so. However, Sir Ro didn't want to hear any more of those excuses. If he could do so, he'd better speak to Gilliard and Theanese as his parents. Ayada was confused and certainly afraid to hear the fact that he had to speak directly to his own father and mother. That night, just before midnight, Sir Gilliard and Theanese arrived in Arot. At the request of Sir Ro, and another person came. He was the Black Tower Master Balzac Ludbeth. He was a Black Tower Master for decades and was one of the 3 legendary dark magicians who contracted with the Demon King of Incarceration. Theanese didn't like seeing Balzac sitting there. This woman bravely rebuked the Black Tower Master. Seeing that, Sir Ro interrupted and said that Balzac had nothing to do with the incident that happened there. Theanese immediately got angry and said that he was not the one who tried to introduce black magic to Ayada. But why even now Sir Ro has the audacity to say he had nothing to do with it? There has no way Theanese would believe it. Then Balzac opened his voice and said that the Black Magic Tower did not rule all the dark mages on Arot. The dark mage responsible for that unfortunate incident is known as Gevid. He didn't come from the Black Magic Tower but rather the Mage Guild. Sir Gilliard joined in. He said if the Magic Tower wasn't involved in the incident, then why was the Black Tower Master in the room? Now then Balzac replied that it was a form of responsibility for what happened. He added that several centuries ago, people who learned black magic were treated as criminals, but after the agreement between the great Vermouth and the demon lord Incarceration, everyone was allowed to learn black magic. However, in today's times, it's different to introduce black magic, and starting a contract with the devil is no longer considered an evil deed. I want to respect the wishes of the Lionheart family, then Sir Gilliard said. It looked far-fetched as self-mockery, but he didn't have to do it, solely for the dignity of the Lionheart family. Balzac confirmed Gilliard's words, because he didn't want to become an enemy of the Lionheart family. As a result of this incident, he came here to take responsibility. Without narcotics, crimes will be tried, our outlaws and everyone involved will be in Aroda's prison. Even all succubus will also be punished. Theanese asked what responsibility about. Balzac replies that he will cut the head off Baron Hohenolfer, an incubus who made a contract with Gevids and who attempted to form a contract with Iota. Then Balzac took out a black flame from his hand, a sign that the demon king Incarceration wanted to say something. Eugene, who heard that, was surprised, but he tried his best to control himself. Balzac said that the demon lord was very disappointed that his beloved Vermouth family fell victim to this incident. So he decided to behead Hohenolfers. Hearing that, Eugene and Patriarch, silently angry, hearing that the demon king said that he loved the Vermont family, apologized again to Patriarch. He then said, maybe the answer was not as expected, because he and the demon lord had done their best to satisfy the Lionheart family's expectations. After saying that, Balzac looked upon Eugene and took his leave and left. So now only Eugene and the Lionheart family are left. Then Sir Rowe asked Eugene to leave. The three of them in the room, Eugene, understood and left the room. After Eugene left, Sir Gilliard said that the Lionheart family had done a terrible mistake to Sir Rowe because it was his neglect as a father. Sir Rowe said that it seemed his fault too, for being too hard on Iota. Then suddenly Sir Gilliard said that if he bring back Iota home. That statement made Theanese surprised. She didn't feel the need to be sent home either. After all, Iota wasn't that mired in black magic, yet only tried a little. Theanese believes Iota will not make the same mistake of second time. Iota will see this incident as a lesson and try harder. Sir Gilliard didn't care what Theanese said, because according to his, in the past 3 centuries, no Lionheart family had become a dark mage, and his decision was unanimous. Even though Iota was his son, but what he had done had completely tarnished the name of the Lionheart. He could no longer let him stay in Arod. Hearing what her husband said clearly, made Theanese angry and did not accept it. She shouted and said that at this time, the main family's position had been eroded. While Iota was in Arod, Cyan and Seal were living in the main family's residence, acknowledged by the other main family members. There was nowhere for Iota to return home. However, Iota had to stay in Arod. Theanese said that Patriarch didn't care about Iota, and all he cared about was Anisila children and his adopted son. Sir Gilliard said he gave all the children they wanted without discriminating against the single child. He sent Iota to Arod because he wanted to study magic. Theanese did not accept Gilliard's words. If Gilliard really cared about Iota, should fulfill all his needs in order to make him a student of Sir Rowe, and if he was worried that Iota would get lost, he should have sent someone to watch over and look after him. Then Gilliard told Theanese to stop what she said and also stop embarrassing the Lionheart family. Theanese instead said that she would be embarrassed if Iota returned home, and if Sir Gilliard persisted in bringing Iota back, Theanese would take him to his parents' home, and never would allow Iota to live in the main family's mansion. She prefers to let Iota study magic at his parents' house, without pressure. Sir Gilliard couldn't help it, if that was the will of Theanese. Meanwhile, when Eugene was outside, someone called him and asked him to talk for a while, which turned out to Balzac. Balzac intended to invite Eugene for a short discussion, but Eugene don't want. Hearing Eugene's words, Balzac assumed that it seemed like Eugene didn't like him. Eugene confirmed that, but not only himself, but all black magic wizards. Belzac understood that even though 300 years had passed, the sentiment towards dark magicians was still not good to him. I know it sounds strange, but he has never done anything bad. Eugene may hate black magic, but Eugene hopes he won't hate Balzac. There was no answer. Eugene was silent, hearing about Balzac's words. Then Balzac continued and said that he had heard about Eugene, according to whom his performance during the bloodline continuation ritual had become widespread, and he had shown a talent for magic recently. Eugene even got a recommendation to an Acrayan from the Red Master. Then Balzac said the Red Tower Master alone will not be enough to give access to Acrayan. Other Tower Master and other wizards will refuse it on the grounds that Eugene is not worthy. So Balzac, the Black Tower Master, will also write a letter of recommendation later for Eugene for Acrayan. Eugene didn't understand about it and asked why he went to great lengths for himself. Balzac said that he was interested in Eugene, but his relationship with the Red Tower Master was also not conducive. He had no hatred towards Suro, so Balzac write a letter of recommendation for Eugene, at least so Eugene don't hate him anymore, and he would also strengthen the relationship with the Lionheart family. Eugene said, "It doesn't mean he is friendly," after he said goodbye to leave there. Eugene have time to think whether about Balzac really wasn't involved in the incident with his brother. As he walked, Balzac was still speaking. He had very proud of be a dark magician because the existence of weak black mage had become the disgrace of black magic. Even if he was the eldest heir of the Lionheart family, he would never give someone without talent a chance to become a dark mage, and this statement would answer the entire question. Eugene cursed about it. Alone in his room, Eugene reminisces about the unicorn's heart, which Gillard had previously given to him as he had stopped Ida, so Eugene deserves to be rewarded. Eugene approached the unicorn heart that was in the cup, thinking that it had many uses, but directly extracting mana was the easiest method. He knew the quality wasn't bad for a monstrous heart. It was clean enough from interference with his own hands. Eugene extracted the mana and the unicorn's heart, thinking that, at this rate, he could achieve 4 stars in the white flame method. Before turning 20 years old, the Lionheart family would definitely be shocked to hear that. Lionheart's 300-year history, there had never been anyone who earned 4 stars before the age of 20. The head of the family both have 6 stars. 6 stars alone is enough to make him one of the strongest people on the continent. If you really wanted to master it, then he would have to start combining the methods. He might try his hardest to become 5 stars. Eugene will put everything into the white flame method Vermouth created. Gargis and Eugene met at a Pentagon public bank to buy something. After that, Gargis invited Eugene to his place to stay. According to him, people said they would send the goods. After he handed over the money, it was a rare opportunity to see giant testicles in person. Eugene grumbled at what Gargis said. He told him to come along, just to see a giant testicle. Gargis that really gone mad. However, even so, Eugene still followed Gargis. Gargis thought that if you interest he would share it later with Eugene. Of course Eugene refused, since he wasn't interested in the testicles, but he was interested in seeing Gargis has red flame method. He needed to see how it differed from the white flame method. That he walked out of the Pentagon bank among the crowd. Eugene seemed to see something. He immediately ran in that direction and into the crowd. Eugene couldn't believe what he saw. Something unnaturally purple. That color was the result of an extreme amount of mana mixed into the body. As he made his way through the crowd and outside, he saw someone he had known from 300 years ago. Seeing otherwise, Eugene was silently confused and did not know what to say. Sinya's appearance was still the same as 300 years ago, but Eugene's appearance was so different. She would have no way of recognizing him. If Eugene had said that he was actually Hamel and reincarnated as a descendant of Vermouth, shortly Sinya would have scolded him. Eugene believed that even after 300 years, he and his demeanor and style of speech are still the same. Then Eugene called Sinya and tried to hold her hand, but it was transparent. Eugene thought that it was a ghost, but he then realized that it was probably an illusion created by magic. However, after thinking that Sinya's body stopped, turned her body and smiled at Eugene, Eugene thought that it wasn't just an illusion. He was quite happy, but soon Xenia's body disappeared, like flying dust. That did make Eugene upset, but instead he smiled and said, he finally met Xenia's, top of the second floor of the Pentagon Public Bank. Eugene thought about Xenia, who is still alive, and she came looking for Eugene. But the question was, how Xenia recognize? Eugene thought it's like Tempest Way, or maybe because of the necklace that Eugene had. Xenia knew about Eugene reincarnation, but the fact that Xenia had only sent an illusion, meant that she was currently unable to come in person, and that meant Xenia had been sealed. Eugene thought, what was Xenia doing? Did someone seal it? Was the culprit Demon King of incarceration? However, it was certain that right now, Xenia was immobilized, but it didn't matter that Eugene would be looking for her at this moment. He was sure he would find it. After that, Gargis came and asked why he suddenly ran. Eugene doesn't want to answer. Instead, he invites Gargis to go to his inn, to see the red flame method. Gargis asked again, Eugene already have the white flame method, why was he interested in the red flame method? Eugene only replied that he was only interested. Then Gargis has ruined his clothes, with his muscular body, saying that, if he did that he would be more excited. After that, red flames came out from Gargis' body. Eugene asked whether the red flame method also had many stars. Gargis replied, that originally the red flame method was not split into many stars, but his ancestors succeeded in increasing the number of stars of the red flame method to 5 stars. As far as he knows, all the red flame methods learned by the reserve family, only a handful of people can touch 5 stars, and Gargis himself practiced and was able to achieve 2 stars. Eugene thought about that. One of the biggest reserve families after several hundred years, the limit of the red flame method were only 5 stars. They teach the white flame method in the main family, while the red flame method is taught in the reserved family. Through teaching like that, the distance between them will not be closed. Eugene didn't get it. Vermouth wasn't the type to be strict about it. Originally planned to learn the red flame method, but afterward he felt it would be pointless. After thinking about that, Eugene said goodbye to leaving there. Gargis said that the giant testicles would arrive soon, but Eugene didn't want to see that. Eugene arrives at the Red Tower, Eugene's private underground lab. Eugene remembers that Acryon kept the last magic book written by Xenia Witchcraft, sure that there must be clues about Xenia there. Sero and the Black Tower Master agreed to write down a recommendation, so it was more likely that he would later be granted access to Acryon. Xenia had been waiting for 300 years, Eugene hoped Xenia would wait a little longer. Eugene took out the Moonlight Blade piece to absorb mana. In the moment it touched the blade, the small fragment would not be able to absorb high-level magic. However, it was still able to counteract low-level magic. Then Eugene rise again if he could keep his mana from being sucked out by the fragment. That is, mana strength would surpass normal limits to be compatible with his white flame method. Hera looked surprised when a student reported hearing continuous explosions and continuous vibrations from research room. Finally, Hera decided to go down and check directly downstairs, because she also had to convey something from the library. When she reached the front door, she knocked politely on the front door, but suddenly she heard a roar until there was a vibration. She instantly burst through the door and asked if Eugene was okay, but his face was immediately red, treated to the sight of a man's muscular chest. Panicked, Hera asked what Eugene had done to sweat like now. Eugene answered that he was training his mana as well as practicing magic. Hera was surprised to hear that answer, because there was no trace of a magic circle. Instead, she saw an object that was still floating properly, even though the walls and floors in the room were shattered. Eugene gives an example of how he trains. Extending his hand, Eugene exerted a fireball attack on the fragment. It turned out that it was able to parry its attacks and throw them in all directions. So that's where the loud bangs and vibrations come from. Hera was even amazed to see how good Eugene was at using magic, and the stars seemed to be circles. Hera could see the mana power of this young man was very strong. She didn't even expect that the combined magic missile and fireball could be so powerful. So Hera asked if Eugene was practicing warfare magic. Eugene answered, he was more focused on the mana training itself, and he is happy because he has made progress. Inside his mind, Eugene was really happy because his magic was absorbed in the first place, but now, he could force the scattered mana to stick together to form an explosion. Hera praised Eugene's extraordinary ascending ability. She also expressed her concern because she heard an explosion from Eugene's room. Eugene asked if she came all the way just to ask that. She came because wanted to tell Eugene that Sero wanted to see him. Hearing this, Eugene immediately picked up the clothes on the floor, asking if Sero is upstairs. She replied, he was in the Royal Library of Acrayan. Instantly Eugene's face stiffened at that. The capital of Arod is the Pentagon. The city was formed thanks to the 5 magic towers. That is where the castle of Arod, Abram, is built in the middle of the Great Lake. Abram cannot be reached without taking a boat. Neither the Pentagon's flying carriage, nor any form of magic could help cross the lake. This is due to the demon sealing circle that surrounds the entire lake along with Abram. This was a gift Senya gave to the royal family as a token of friendship. The circle is still very strong even though hundreds of years have passed. Eugene commented that Senya's ability on this one is crazy. He had started to understand magic when he was in Arod, but he still couldn't imagine that someone could surround the Great Lake and Abram with a demon sealing circle. Hera asked if Eugene wanted to visit Abram. Eugene replied that he saw the place because it felt so grand. Eugene realized that this place was not a place that one could go casually just because he wanted to visit it. Hera confirmed that because only Tower Master and the castle's nobles can enter Abram, she said no Tower Master can't use the magic in Abram, only royal family and castle mages who sworn to them can use magic. Eugene asks, does that mean the Tower Masters haven't sworn allegiance to the royal family? Hera said yes, but the Tower Master still often disobeys unreasonable orders. Hera explained that the Magic Tower and Arod have a mutual agreement, a parliament that has strong ties to the Magic Tower. Meanwhile, castles have their own group of mages. So usually the Tower Master are meant for the parliament. Hera added that it wasn't like mages hated each other. At this time, the two of them were standing in front of the magnifying deficit gate of the Library of Acrayan. Hera explained that there were 3 people who rejected the recommendation to enter Acrayan, namely the Blue Tower Master, the Green Tower Master and the Mage Tower Master. If later Eugene gets acknowledgement from the 3 of them, then you will be able to enter Acrayan. After saying Hera took her leave, wish a good luck, Eugene. Now, Eugene was giving his greetings in front of all the higher-ups of Arod. Inside the room, the captain of the castle's mages, then the Master of Red Tower, the Master of Green Tower, the Master of Blue Tower, the Master of White Tower, the Master of Black Tower and the Master Mage Guild. Finally, someone asked Eugene to raise his head. The bespectacled man sat in the very center of the row. He said he heard many stories about Eugene and wanted to meet him soon. Apparently, this figure is Hanan Abram Aroda's first successor in line. Eugene had already heard about him. He is the genius who reached the 5th circle before touching adulthood. Meanwhile, the Blue Tower Master says he has also heard about Eugene, but he was astonished because the Red Tower Master and Black Magic Tower kept pressing to give him access faster. Blue Tower knows Eugene, who is talented, but swordsmanship and magic are 2 different things. The Blue Master Tower's face grew irritated at the thought of a 17-year-old young man getting a recommendation to enter Acrayan. Master Blue Tower suspects that there is something between them. He knew that the Red Tower Master was an old associate of the head of the Lionheart family. While the Black Tower Master approached the Lionheart family for sure to cover up the recent case. Eugene said he understood, so he asked what to do to prove himself, to gain access to Acrayan. Sir Ro explains that Eugene needs to demonstrate his magic in front of the higher-ups and the nobles, who will judge his abilities. The Blue Tower Master added that Eugene should also present his dissertation and other research, but he suspected that Eugene would not have such a thing. Without many words to argue, Eugene showed sharp eyes before starting to show his skills. The core and Eugene's chest started rotating and forming a circle. With that, the mana around Eugene's body flared up like a white lion's mana. The elders began to be amazed to see this. They didn't expect the young man who had only trained for 4 years, to be able to combine several cores to make a circle, but there are also those who think that it is not enough because there was a clear difference between controlling mana and comprehending magic. The flames that blazed in Eugene's hand transformed into the shape of a fire arrow tip, then changed again, into the shape of a sword blade. At this moment the masters were even more surprised to see Eugene's ability to skillfully change magic spells. Moreover, Eugene didn't need to chant it out, because this meant that Eugene had to understand the magic. He was using perfectly in order to do that. One of the masters asked if Eugene could use his magic and sword at the same time. Without saying much, this young man drew his sword and directly channeled mana into the blade. The masters were even more shocked to see the youth in front of them still able to maintain their circle, and its function is still the same as the core in general. Finally Sir Ro asked what the other master thought of Eugene's amazing abilities. Master Green Tower said they should discuss it first. So Eugene was asked to leave. Sir Ro, after Eugene came out, the master of the Blue Tower asked Sir Ro if he really didn't help him anyway. Sir Ro said he told them many times that Eugene was not being guided by anyone. He only read beginner magic books on the Red Tower, then study magic independently. Hearing this, the Blue Tower master thought whether it was true that just reading books for beginners could make him understand magic at such level. Only noble in the room finally spoke up and said he is a Lionheart, the noble of the Keel Empire and a descendant of Vermouth the Great, whose blood is well known throughout the continent. Prince Han says that Eugene is a genius. The White Tower master said that the magic Eugene used just now was Circle 1 magic, but its power far exceeded that limit. This master believed that everyone in the room could feel Eugene's immense power. The Master White Tower said, the purity of the mana, the precision in usage, and what was most surprising was the unity in the mana. This master said they should check Eugene's strength, but she was sure that even 4 levels of circled, the dispelling would not be enough to stop the boy's magic. But one of masters said that Eugene was too young to be recognized as a genius. This master said Eugene should be mentored for a few more years by Master Tower before he was ready to enter Acreon. The Blue Tower master even said that Eugene could be an investment, considering he is a talented 17-year-old young man from the Lionheart family, because he was still young and his abilities were still insufficient, but his potential was limitless. Plus, they already have a good relationship with the Lionheart family support, as an individual, as well as investing in him is quite good. Meanwhile, Master Green Tower says that no matter how good his talent is, Eugene is still an adopted child, which meant he couldn't be the head of the family. Master Black Tower added that one of the twins, namely Cyan Lionheart, would likely become the head of the family. Technically, Lionheart is the rightful heir, but considering the recent embarrassing incident plus his inferiority complex, he wouldn't be joining the fight for the family head position. Even if Eugene couldn't become the head of the family, his position in the main family should not be underestimated. Master Blue Tower confirmed it. So later, when Eugene Lionheart had to leave his main family because he married and had children of his own, then he had to leave the main residence as a form of custom for the Lionheart family, and at that point, they would have to invite him over to Arod. That happened because Eugene's abilities will definitely grow rapidly. If Eugene didn't forget the help the master has provided, that he would become a valuable ally in the future. Master Black Tower added that Eugene also displayed extraordinary abilities during the bloodline continuation ritual 4 years ago. Even the Lionheart family had recognized the potential in him. The Master of the Black Tower hopes that with help from Arod, it is possible that Eugene will become the second incarnation of Vermouth the Great. Mr. Green Tower laughed at the Black Tower's word. He thought Master Black Tower's words were too much praise for Eugene. Master Green Tower asked if it was really the personal opinion of a certain Belzac Lundberg, because he suspected the Demon King of incarceration influence in his every word. Instantly Belzac, the Master of the Black Tower, laughed. At those words he replied that the Demon King was currently preoccupied with Helmet. After all, when he spoke on behalf of the Demon King of incarceration, his attitude would be different. his proximity will be much rounder and he will usually use his strength. Instantly the entire room turned gloomy as the Black Tower Master finished speaking. Everyone gave off a murderous aura as if weary of this young master's attitude. So about sake, immediately apologized for sounding a bit aggressive. What it conveys is that he was very loyal and following the wishes of the Demon King, the White Tower Master, who was the only woman in the place. Finally, stood up and asked everyone not to forget today's main topic. She said, since it didn't look like everyone was going to come to an agreement anytime soon, she suggested voting instead. Said, the prince thinks it's a good idea. So he'll be the first to agree to grant Eugene Lionheart access to Acrayon. The Royal Library of Acrayon doesn't only store high-value magic books, but that place also holds the legacy of the great sorcerer's wizard divided into several floors, plus our odds history is engraved on its walls instead of a library. This place is more suitable to be called a museum. There are 15 floors in Acrayon. Sienna's legacy is on floors 12 to 14, while reading the history on the wall, a woman calls out to Eugene. It was the White Tower Master Melkith El Hayat, the best elemental wizard of this era, the only elemental wizard to successfully contract with 2 elemental kings. She was a mage, who could assume the title of Grand Mage with just her normal magic without relying on elemental magic. Eugene asked Melkith politely, if the discussion was over. She replied, that it would take too long to wait for everyone to agree. So he suggested voting. She said that 5 people agreed to grant access to Eugene, the remaining 2 people refused. Then, there is 1 neutral person. So because more people agree, Eugene asked if he could pay a visit to Acrayon now. Melkith said yes, but he asks, you need to guess who is on which side. Eugene answered no, because the most important thing for him is those who agree more, so that Eugene can enter Acrayon. Even so, Melkith still said that he was the one who was being neutral. Earlier Melkith deliberately did not side with any side so that Eugene would not be dragged into another high-ranking coachman's debate. As the Tower Masters exited the room, they all looked irritated at one another. They had already decided through voting, but they would continue to debate it. Disapproved of Eugene entering Agrim again, Eugene replied that he didn't care, but Melkith still said that the ones who didn't agree with Eugene entering were the Green Tower Master and the Mage Guild Master. Eugene again emphasizes that he does not want to know that. Melkith immediately called boring as a 17-year-old teenager because of his cold attitude. Melkith asked if this young man didn't feel irritated or angry at people who didn't support him. Eugene coldly said no. Then he said goodbye and got ready to leave. Melkith immediately prevented Eugene from leaving, while pointing at the sword, his waist with a cold face. Eugene confirmed this. Then he asked why Melkith was interested in his sword. Melkith replied that she had tried to contract the Wind Elemental King several times, but had received no response. She had even tried everything by asking the Lighting and Earth Elemental Kings, but they replied that the Wind Elemental King was in no mood to contract with anyone. She had even sent a letter to the Lionheart family, but everyone there insisted that outsiders were not allowed to borrow their family property. Finally, Eugene also said that he couldn't lend Wined, if moreover, technically the sword was not his, he only borrowed it with the permission of the family head. Melkith immediately turned scared hearing this. She forces Eugene, saying that no one else needs to know because she just wanted to borrow it for a while. She said she only wanted to borrow it for 1 day, if necessary Eugene can keep an eye on her. Eugene fell silent. He rubbed it nicely as a thinking gesture. Eugene remember Tempest never responding to his calls again. Since that day during these 4 years, he always failed to summon Tempest. Eugene fell silent, thought the meaning might still be lacking to summon Tempest, but if the one who summoned it was the Master of the White Tower, who was the only elemental wizard, the contract binder, with 2 element kings, just might succeed. But Eugene decided not to accept his offer right away. If he was patient, it was possible that Eugene would gain an even greater advantage over Melkith. So, Eugene acts needy and pretends not to hear her. Where to get the access card? Melkith is happy to help. Now, in Eugene's hand, there is an access card to enter Acrayon. Milkith asks if Eugene know, the familiar spirit here, there is the legacy of the great wizards, the founder of Arot and Sienya the Wise, their familiar spirit are here too. Eugene fell silent, but Milkith knew Eugene had always been interested in Sienya. Milkith knew that Eugene had been looking for Sienya's floor earlier. Even this woman knew Eugene visited Sienya's mansion on his first day coming to Arot. Eugene only responds by saying that Milkith knows many things about him, but Milkith replied that it was because Eugene was very popular. She continued to follow Eugene, while asking when will Winnet be loaned. Arriving at the elevator, Milkith even taught Eugene how to use his access card. When he saw Eugene enter the card, she asked if the young man wanted to enter the 12th floor. Eugene said yes, so immediately this woman says that Eugene is a fan of Sienya. As Eugene got into the elevator, Milkith finally stopped following because there wasn't that much time to keep following this young man. With a sly face, Milkith asked Eugene to prepare diaper to see the fragment for the first time, because Eugene will probably pee his pants. Hearing Milkith chatter, that was getting weirder. This young man was immediately stunned and pushed the elevator button roughly. After waiting for a while, the door finally opened. When he arrived at the 12th floor, Eugene was greeted by a girl who looked very much like Sienya. The girl gave him a welcoming greeting and said his full name. Eugene was shocked and suspected that the girl was a small version of Sienya. Eugene asks, "She is the real Sienya?" With a wide smile, the little girl answered that nope, she wasn't Sienya but the familiar spirit who was in charge of guarding Sienya's floor in Acrayon. Eugene was shocked to see that this library even had a familiar that looked so much like Sienya's. Then Eugene asked, how did the familiar know his name? The girl replied that she knew that because Eugene had just registered his name downstairs, that way automatically all the familiars in Acrayon have synchronized with the system and know about Eugene's name. Eugene then asked what name he should call this familiar. The little girl replied excitedly that she used to be called Mel by Sienya. Eugene asks if the name Mel is taken from Sienya's last name Merdane. Mel confirmed it while smiling proudly. Eugene wondered why Sienya had made a familiar that matched her exactly. Even this familiar name carried the surname Sienya's. Eugene wondered what Sienya is planning by doing this. Eugene finally asks if familiars are usually similar to humans like Mel. Mel answered no, familiars on the celestial floor weren't the same as they would be. She is special because her creator is Sienya the Wise, a friend of Vermouth the Great. So she was also created based on Sienya's personality. Eugene remembered that Sero had told him that it was forbidden to create living things. Mel explained that he was not alive and did not have a soul like living things in general. Her body was created based on Sienya's consciousness, and her consciousness was in a large orb above Mana surrounded by a circle of intricate magic chains. Eugene was stunned to see it. He asks, what is it? Mel immediately perked up and said it was a great question. So excited was this girl that his hat fell off. She quickly picked it up before explaining, it was a magic essence, she had worked on her whole life and the name is witchcraft. Eugene was even more surprised to hear that because, by the way, that was the name of a magic book, divided into 3 volumes, high, intermediate and low, which Sienya ended up completing before she retired. Eugene says that, it doesn't look like a book. Mel explained that it was just a prejudice that all books had to look like books. Then Mel smiled slightly and said that Eugene would not be able to understand this expression because even the Tower Master could not even understand it. Eugene was finally silenced by the words of the girl in front of him, especially when he saw the expression of a confident, condescending smile that was very similar to Sienya's. Eugene was secretly amazed at Mel's ability to imitate Sienya so perfectly. Eugene tries to ask if Madame Sienya had the same personality as Mel until the end. Mel answered, no, because Mel's personality is set according to Sienya's. When she was Mel also shared that Sienya had turned into an elegant and graceful figure. She didn't smile much, and only focused on magic research and development. Eugene hesitant to hear this explanation, considering Sienya's expression used to be so buried and tomboyish. Then Eugene asked what she meant when Sienya said her consciousness was in witchcraft. What Mel meant was that his consciousness was formed from the spell contained in the witchcraft and the purpose of its creation is to care for and protect against witchcraft. Mel explained that he had guarded the floor for 200 years, under Madame Sienna's orders. Eugene stepped steadily toward the large mana ball. He remembered Sir Ro's words when he said the knowledge he had learned over the years looked so small that it like a child's toy in front of witchcraft. Eugene believes this book must contain extraordinary magic that exceeds magic in general. Eugene suddenly turned to Mel and asked that the girl must not know where is Sienna. Where's she gone? Mel confirmed it because Sienna left suddenly and secretly. Not even her students, the mansion maids, and Mel herself knew anything about Sienna's resignation. Still King Arot, the Towel Masters at that time and many other magicians came to interrogate Mel about Sienna's whereabouts, even though the girl had said she didn't know anything. They still didn't want to believe me. Well, the curse people entered the witchcraft to check their memories. Mel scoffs at their low ability as they come back decades later to double check. Eugene knew they were checking Mel's memories for more than just Sienna's location, but it also makes the girl the right experimental material. All mages would want to dissect her, no matter how respectful they were to Sienna. Eugene then says that he heard the only published witchcraft is the highest section. So this young man asked how about the other two sections. Mel explained that the witchcraft in front of him was the real thing Sienna had deliberately drawn, the low and intermediate sections of her book. Then Sienna donated the original book to Acrayon. Mel saw that Eugene was very interested in Sienna. Given his family background, this young man wasn't a magician by nature. Mel looked very curious, because this was the first time she saw the descendants of Vermouth the Great. From what Mel could tell, Sienna had not visited the Lionheart family since returning to Arot. She had never visited Vermouth through self either. Eugene fell silent at that. He remembered that in the Lionheart history books, Vermouth had also never seen his friends. After they returned from Helmet, the reason Sienna, Anis and Moran reunited was to attend Vermouth's funeral. Although Vermouth is not a very social person, the fact that he did not meet anyone after returning from Helmet. Eugene that asked Mel, Sienna ever talks about her friends? Mel replied that Sienna said Moran was an idiot, then said Anis was like a venomous snake. Eugene that asked what about Hamel? Mel answered an idiot, a wimp, a retard, fucking bastard. Eugene immediately asked with a stiff face, isn't Madame Sienna elegant and graceful? Mel explains that elegant and graceful people can still swear. They'll also said that whenever Sienna talked about her friends, her expression always turned sad and wanted to cry, especially when talking about Hamel. Sienna looked so sad and hurt. Eugene asked slowly about what Sienna said about Mr. Vermouth. Mel replied that in the matter of Mr. Vermouth, Sienna had neither praised, berated nor judged him. Currently Eugene was standing in front of the painting in the library. This young I thought that the painting was an exact match to the one in Sienna's mansion. Suddenly Mel, who is standing behind him, said that the smile and the painting was fake. She also added that Sienna had never smiled like that. When Mel interacts with Sienna during her personality update, Mel asks Sienna why she left the painting smiling even though Sienna always looks sad. Sienna answered back then if the painting were to be passed down through the generations, that a smile would be much more pleasing to the eye than a sad face. Mel said that she had never left Acrayon, so she hadn't had the chance to see the painting in person yet, but she had heard that Sienna's mansion had the same painting. Now, also said that it was the painter who added to the smile. That was probably why Sienna liked the painting less, but as Sienna said, a smiling face was much more pleasing to the eye. Mel even said this with a very sad face. He think he don't know what the girl has seen while she was with Sienna. Eugene was speechless and also felt sad, but when he wanted to touch Mel's head, he has immediately pushed aside, and the girl forbade him not to cross his line.